First of all, just to introduce myself, I do recognize quite a few faces in the room, but my name is Alex Marsh. I lead a team called the Strategy Unit in the Strategy Directorate in UKRI, and we aim to work across experts in all of the councils to develop our overall strategy, and really the strategic prospectus was a culmination of our work thus far. Before I do go into the talk, though, I just wanted to reflect that it is a pleasure and a privilege to be able to speak to so many of you here, and to those who are listening and watching on the live feed. I think time is reasonably tight, not least thanks to the trains. So I'm going to try and keep this talk fairly brief and cover two topics. First of all, an overview of where we've got to in the process of developing UKRI's overall strategy. So a summary of what's in the strategic prospectus, and also some of the highlights of what we've already achieved in terms of turning that into a reality. And then second, I will reflect a bit on what comes next, which is very much going to be a joint effort for all of us across UKRI. So first of all then, in terms of where we've come from, there we go. Any good strategy starts with a vision, a statement of what it is that we're all about and what we're trying to achieve. You'll have seen this flash up in the video at the beginning of today's session. UK research and innovation, benefiting everyone through knowledge, talent, and ideas. So as Mark says, it's really all about recognizing that everything we do ultimately is geared towards making a positive impact on the world, both now and in the future. And that in order to do that, we need to leverage the tools, the talents, the dedication, and the expertise of everyone across research and innovation. But that, of course, is a very high-level aspiration. So it's helpful to break it down into some building blocks. So this is the framework that we set out in the strategic prospectus, which sets out, underneath that vision, what are our headline missions and objectives. So if we start from the very top, there are three kinds of impact overall that UKRI is aiming to deliver. And ultimately, we're going to be held to account, to Mark's comment about we'd better be successful. So what does success look like? It looks like three kinds of impact. First of all, in the top left, delivering economic impact. So we all know that R&D is able to deliver benefits economically. But actually, when you look at the theory, what you find that for countries like the UK, R&D is at the heart of how we can continue to sustain economic growth. And therefore, we need to recognize that one of UKRI's roles is to ensure that we do make maximum use both of our world-class research base and supporting our innovative businesses to help solve challenges and secure economic benefits right across the UK. In the top right, we also have social and cultural impact. R&D is not just good for the economy, but it can help solve problems, hopefully around train timetabling, but also other public service and public policy problems around how to support an aging society to stay well, as well as questions around how we improve our overall quality of life and our well-being, for example, through enriching our culture and making our society as rich as it can possibly be. And underpinning those two types of impact, of course, is pushing the frontiers of human knowledge and understanding. This is, in fact, a positive outcome in its own right, because knowledge has value. But without pushing the frontiers of human knowledge and understanding, ultimately, we're not going to be able to deliver economic and social impact in a sustainable way. So all three of those reinforce each other, and those effectively represent the three overall outcomes and objectives that we're striving to achieve. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we get the foundations right. So as Mark said, we need to make sure that we maintain and are custodians of a trusted and diverse system. We need to think about the culture for those working at the cutting edge of research and innovation. We need to think about how to make sure that we support open access. And we need to ensure that we champion equality, diversity, and inclusion in everything that we do, so that everyone participating in that endeavor is able to fulfill their maximum potential. We need to focus on leading talent, because ultimately it's going to be people doing real work that determine whether or not we achieve those objectives and our vision. So we need to make sure that we have a relentless focus on how to recruit and develop and support both individuals and teams so that they can deliver these outcomes. We need to think about the UK's place on the global stage in research and innovation, because we all know that actually research and innovation is a global endeavor, and ideas don't really respect national boundaries. So we need to make sure that we both build on existing partnerships that the UK enjoys and also forge out and build new ones, both bilaterally and multilaterally. And then on the far right, infrastructure. some of you will be aware that we have a program ongoing to develop an overall infrastructure roadmap. We need to make sure that UK research in innovation provides researchers and innovators with the cutting-edge infrastructure that they need to succeed. And by that we mean both the large facilities and large kit, but also smaller facilities, and making sure that the environment that everyone works in is fit for purpose. And of course, underpinning all of that, we have us, UKRI, as an outstanding organisation. And Ian is going to reflect a bit more on how we ensure we deliver that when he speaks after me. So if that is what overall is in the strategic prospectus, how we behave is going to be just as important to ensure that we can deliver on the vision. And each of the 4 values has a part to play here. So first of all, collaboration. We have all been brought together in the process of forming UKRI, and collaborating within councils and between councils and leveraging different perspectives and types of expertise is going to be really integral to delivering this vision. But so too is recognizing that UKRI, although very large, is only part of the overall ecosystem, and we are going to need to work collaboratively with our partners, both other funders, with those who deliver research and innovation, with charities, with members of the public, in order to make sure that we can succeed. Then we have excellence. This is something which is intimately familiar to all parts of UKRI, but it's worth remembering that a relentless focus on quality is going to be critical if we're going to make sure that we maximize the potential of research and innovation. The innovation value, I think for me, has 2 parts. We do need to recognize that there are many tools and programs and ways of working which are tried and tested, and we know they work, and we must hold on to them and build on the lessons that come from those. But at the same time, we do need to be open to exploring what are the opportunities to develop new, creative, dynamic ways of working as we come together and capitalize on those. Be prepared to experiment and learn from what does not work as well as what does. And lastly, integrity. Mark reflected on the challenges that the overall research and innovation endeavor faces in terms of its relationship with the public. And so an ongoing focus on impartiality, professionalism, and openness in everything that we do is going to be really important. So those at a high level are the principles and building blocks of the strategic prospectus. It's worth acknowledging that we have actually already achieved quite a lot to turn that into a reality. So the first thing it's worth acknowledging there is the figure in the top right, £7 billion more for R&D. We have worked very hard with government to convince it, both in the potential of UKRI as an organisation and also of the value of R&D in everything that we do as part of the government's overall industrial strategy. And I think the fact that the government has chosen to invest £7 billion more in R&D is testament to the success that we have had and to the fact that everyone, up to and including the Prime Minister, recognises how central what we are doing is for the country as a whole. You can see that this starts actually in the last financial year, and so we've already made a rapid start to start investing that money as wisely as we can. And of course, this is involving not just people thinking about strategy, but teams right across the councils in UKRI working very hard to deliver these new programs. I won't talk about all of them, but just to highlight the ISCF, which Mark already mentioned, that involves very close joint working between Innovate and teams across the research councils, very much aligned to the industrial strategy and the grand challenges, and enables us to identify and then galvanize teams of researchers and businesses across the country to solve the most pressing problems and opportunities for the UK. And these are incredibly diverse already. So we have one challenge on transforming construction, considering how can we ensure that the UK can build homes of the future which minimize their carbon footprint. We have others that are about people's quality of life and their well-being, for example, leveraging the power of artificial intelligence and big data to accelerate the early diagnosis of chronic diseases. And we have those which are much more in the cultural space, so for example, supporting cutting-edge businesses in our creative industries sector to exploit technologies like augmented and virtual reality so that the audiences of the future have the richest possible experience. It's also worth pulling out the Strength in Places Fund, which is a good example of, I think, quite how innovative UKRI can be, because we have designed and are now rolling out this brand new program incredibly rapidly, drawing on the expertise, particularly of Research England and Innovate UK. And this is going to ensure that we can deliver economic benefits stemming from our research and innovation right across the country. It's also worth mentioning the Strategic Priorities Fund, which builds on the vision that was set out in Paul Nurse's review of a common fund. And this is a really important part of ensuring that our overall strategic approach is balanced and will ensure that we can identify and back emerging priorities for each of the councils in UKRI, that we can support some of the best multi- and interdisciplinary research, and also so that we can work ever more closely with government departments so that we can recognise what their greatest needs are and help them to deliver better outcomes for the country. So that at a headline level is where we've come from. Where are we going? Well, we've also succeeded in convincing the government to set a very clear and really quite challenging target for where we should go in the future. Mark mentioned that the Prime Minister has set the target for total investment in R&D to reach 2.4% of GDP by 2027. That's a very dry number, but actually, if we can get there, it's going to be a transformative change, both for the UK and also for us as an organisation. To put it in context, I don't know if all of the countries are legible at the bottom of the chart, but the orange bar represents the United Kingdom, and we're down at about 1.7% total investment at the moment. And you can see the OECD average there at about 2.4%. So in relative terms, this is really quite a big step up. It represents a challenge, therefore, but it also represents a huge opportunity for us. We are already working in our development of the next steps of the strategy with experts across UKRI and closely with government to influence what are the plans and proposals that could help us get to 2.4%, which includes both non-spending levers around, for example, regulation, but also working out where we need to be making the case for additional public investment in R&D to support the whole economy to get there. In terms of then delivering on this, well, it's going to need to be a whole of government effort, with multiple departments playing their part. But I'm very confident that UKRI is going to play a central role in the delivery and execution of this as well. So really, we are at the beginning of a journey in terms of the overall development of UKRI's strategy. We've come far already, but I did want to pull out what are the next steps. The first thing to say is that delivering on all of the things that we've already committed to, whether in our existing programs or in some of the new initiatives that I highlighted, continues to be absolutely key to showing that UKRI can deliver and that we maintain the confidence of government and of taxpayers. But in parallel to this, many across UKRI are also thinking about what comes next, both in terms of analysis, policy development, and internal lessons learned, as well as extensive engagement with experts in your different domain areas and areas of expertise. It's worth highlighting the strategic delivery plans because every council will be publishing these next year, and councils have already started thinking about how to structure those and how to engage with communities so that next year it's possible to set out more detail on the domain-specific strategies for all parts of UKRI. And in parallel with that, we will be working to influence the development of the 2.4% roadmap and ensure that UKRI is in the best possible position for the next spending review. So in summary, I would say there is a lot to do, but I would echo Mark's words. I think this is a really exciting time for UK research and innovation. Thank you very much.